Okay, well, we are live on YouTube. The H1B guy here. I just wanted to thank everyone who is taking the time to join me today for another round of the H1B guy live, unedited, unscripted conversation covering H1B visas, S386, and more. Before we get started, though, I have so many people in my life that over the last 2 months, when, really in the middle of June, I came up with the concept and the platform for the H1B guy. They've just been so supportive. I've gotten a lot of funny looks when I've told a lot of my friends and family what I'm doing, almost as if I'm talking a language from outer space. But over the last couple of weeks, the channel and the website and my Twitter feed has really just grown exponentially. When I created this platform, it was to really help educate and advise everyone on what an H-1B visa is, what immigrant benefits are, and really how they are critical to the success and the thriving of our economy. I think just the feedback that I've gotten over the last few weeks and the outpouring of support, from the guys in my Friday group, to all of my neighbors, to all of my family. I want to thank my parents. They've always allowed me to be who I am and do what I love. And I just am so thankful for that. To my wife, who, when I told her what I was going to do, wanted to know, okay, but how are you going to make money? And we're working on that. But I want to help people. It's my passion. I'm very passionate about immigration. I am a fourth generation direct descendant of immigrants who came through Ellis Island and settled in the New England area. Um, but just to let everyone know a little bit about me, I grew up in South Georgia on the coast, and went to school at a university called Georgia Southern University in Statesboro, Georgia. And they have a very large SAP training program in their information technology, College of Education and Information Technology, their computer science department. So I got into recruiting and staffing, and I did that for 16 years. And that gives me a unique perspective on the H-1B visa, and really on this debate about the green card backlog and S386. I'm not an immigration attorney, and if you're looking for paid legal advice, that's not me. Everything that we talk about on this channel is my opinion. It's based on my experience, and a lot of it, as you've probably noticed and seen in a lot of the comments, is very moderate. I definitely have been a very moderate-leaning individual through most of my life, financially conservative and, I guess morally and socially liberal. And I think that gives me a unique perspective. And so, I just wanted to thank everyone. Right as of this very moment, the channel is at 93 subscribers. If you're watching this live or in record and you haven't already subscribed to the H1B guy, gonna ask you now to please subscribe to the H1B guy. Really helps me produce more content like this, and just kind of doing what I love to do, which is talk about work authorization, immigration benefits, staffing, and kind of everything that goes in between that. So, another thing that I wanted to talk about, another podcast that I listened to talked about how COVID-19 has threatened our lives. When you think about that, it's threatened our routines, it's threatened our health, it's threatened our financials. And for a lot of you watching this, it's threatened your right to work, your opportunity to work. We, over the last several weeks, have been given sort of this diatribe and rhetoric that H1B visa holders here in the U.S. are stealing jobs from American workers. If you've watched this channel at all, if you have watched any of my older videos over the last month, you know I don't agree with that at all. Um, I think that that's rhetoric, knowing that there's an upcoming election and there are millions and millions of unemployed individuals right now looking for answers. And so I think that that's why you see that rhetoric going on. So just wanted to mention that. I also wanted to talk about a story that's been in the news, an individual named Manpreet Singh. Um, some of you probably were aware of this. He drowned in Fremont, California while trying to save like 3 or 4 children. And, Manpreet comes from, it looks like the India, from Punjabi from what I can tell. Just a very sad story, but I had a friend of mine that I played high school football with that died the same way, trying to save some kids in the Atlantic Ocean. Went out to rescue them and drowned. And, I think any individual who loses their life trying to save others, it should be discussed and brought up that we all really right now need to think about being good humans. Especially when it comes to this political debate and the social media warfare that's taking place around S386. I've talked to some of you about, personally, I don't care for the word racist, but I don't know if there is another word to describe how a lot of temporary foreign workers that are here in this country, specifically from India, feel. I guess it is racism, but it's just that word to me personally has such a large negative connotation to it. But again, I just am not smart enough to come up with another word that would be better suited. So anyway, what I wanted to do before we get into kind of a little bit of the format that I have for the H1B Guy Live here today, there was some breaking news that's come down from Greg Siskin on Twitter. Greg is the voice for immigration on Twitter. He's really been at the leading edge of the platform and getting the word out. He is an immigration attorney, though, so his point of view is going to be much different than mine and how I present some of the data. But Greg has broken about 20 minutes ago that the government's going to allow H-1Bs that are stuck abroad that have a job that they were currently working in the U.S. If the job is still available, they're going to be allowed to re-enter. So that's just huge news. And then there was another piece that mentioned if the worker was critical to the immediate facilitation of the U.S. economic recovery, they would also be deemed for entry as well. So look for more on that from Greg. He's got 20,000 followers on Twitter. Doesn't need me to tell you to go follow him. I'm pretty sure if you're watching this channel, you already are following him. So let's get to the Twitter questions that were posted, the H1B guy. We took the top 3 from our post yesterday. And the first one comes in from @EVGuy7. And he asks, American employers overwhelmingly support S386. At employee level, who would benefit and be adversely affected by it? That's an interesting question. You definitely have a lot of the large tech companies coming out in support of not only the temporary foreign labor workforce, but in S386 as well. As to who's going to benefit and who's going to be, affected by it, I think the benefit comes down to everyone that's in the backlog, right? A clear path to permanent residency, getting that green card and how important that is and what that gives to you as an individual. It gives you freedom to work for whoever you want, freedom to dictate what you're paid, freedom to dictate where you live, freedom to dictate your travel even. And so, I think there are hundreds of thousands of individuals that will benefit greatly from this. As I mentioned, on Monday in my video, the H1B guy responds. The cap around employment-based preferences that's created the green card backlog, I personally don't agree with. I think it's atrocious and it's just wrong. So I do think we need to look at adjusting the percentages of the by country, quota that we have. I will tell you that I don't know what that needs to look like. That's way above my pay grade here to determine that. But I think that determining a cap quota based on the country of origin, specifically in the employment-based category, has to be reformed. There's just no doubt about it. And I think a lot of you out there are aware of it. But who's going to be affected by that? I think, and this is going to lead into, there was a second question, but who's going to be affected most by it? I think it's the third-party vendors that are out there, right? These software tech companies that hold anywhere between 20 to 75 H1s on their W-2 that subcontract those individuals out, they are going to be immediately impacted. I mean, think about if half of their workforce now has W-2 work authorization and no longer requires their services. You're still going to have some loyalists out there that will stick with their employer because they market their profile, they found them jobs, they've paid them well over time. I think you'll still see that, but yeah, I mean, over the last few weeks have been alluding to the death of the third-party consultant and what that means in the 50-50 rule and what that means in eliminating the backlog and how that will be impacted. So yeah, I think that the third-party subcontract vendors out there, they are definitely the ones who are going to be affected the most by this in terms of adversely affected. But yeah, the employees, though, have the most to gain. It's freedom, right? It's the opportunity to choose for who, where, and how much you're willing to do a job for, right? Great question. So at EVGuy7 also sent another question, and this was my favorite question that I received yesterday. It's something that we've talked about a good bit on this channel. Some of the data has actually been cycled the last couple of days back to me saying, hey, they agree with you, H1B guy. But the question was, would S386 result in increasing or decreasing wages in technology? And I just love this question as a whole. And so in order to answer this question, I'm just going to give you kind of a timeline of what I've seen in the last 10 years in terms of wages and how they've increased and flattened out. But I want to go back to 2010, so really kind of the last 10 years as a benchmark. Of course, in 2008, everyone knows we had sort of the financial crisis that created a recession. Specifically in the large financial institutions and the trickle down that followed from that. But since that point, kind of the recovery that started in 2010, if you will, tech wages have been literally on a pretty good incline, increasing, I'd say periodically, anywhere between 3 to 8% annually. And we've seen that across the board. That's not just in contract-based placements, but it's been in salary as well, where tech wages have increased, again, kind of in that 3 to 8% range. And then as we've seen the demand really increase and over kind of the next 5 years, so 2010 to 2015, what we saw is the labor pool really contract. So the available resources for not only companies, but staffing and recruitment and consulting firms that are out there trying to identify talent, what we saw is in order to attract and lure certain candidates, it really came down to money. How much are they willing to pay me, right? The incentive, the pay. So we've seen rates really jump. I'd say between 2004 to the end of 2019, the first few months in 2020, um, it was not out of the norm to see just a 5, 6, 7 year Java developer that had Spring Boot and the latest Angular commanding $75, $80 an hour, right? And so I think what has happened is that the comp started to flatten out, right? The salaries, they started to flatten. We started to see that 2018, 2019. Contract rates were still sort of on an increase, but maybe not as crazy as they were. But the only time I really saw rates really exponentially jump is in that niche space, right? Kind of a one-off skill set. Um, so I know this is sort of a long rambling, but my point in all this is that COVID, when it hit March 15th of 2020, it pulled the rug out from under wages. It pulled the rug out from under what we can and cannot command from a compensation standpoint. Um, and I think that goes for the consultant, it goes for the staffing firms, it goes for the subcontractors. It almost is you are no longer in a power position to dictate rate. So COVID is the beginning of that. Now, the question is around S386, though, okay? And will it have a negative impact on wages? Possibly. I think, but that coincides with the recession that we're entering in, if you will, that was based on the global pandemic and created by COVID. And so, I think that you'll see a decrease in wages, right? Kind of a step down, boom. But what that looks like based on, S386 impact, I think a lot of that's to be determined. I definitely believe there will be a flattening, specifically in the perm market. I just do. I mean, you're talking about now, if the backlog is eliminated and you look at, as we've talked about, the hundreds of thousands that would be impacted and the freedom that would be gained from that, yeah, you have more W-2 resources available on the market, right? So I think you'd see a lot of organizations do a lot of perm hiring, and that would be most likely at some sort of reduced wage, right? Because now you're not talking about a prevailing wage determination tied to a visa anymore. So, definitely I foresee there to be either a flattening or a decrease. I'd say that window of time is probably about a 24-month period. And then I think you'll see the increase come back in. Newer tech comes in, more specialization comes in that dictates the increase. So at EVGuy7, thank you so much for your questions on Twitter. I've really enjoyed our interaction over the last few days and the information that you've shared with me, specifically that Thomson Reuters article. Thank you. Look for more on that on Friday in the H1B Guy News. And then finally, the third question, and this is from at Revolution again, and that's Revolution with an S. And they ask, what do you think about this injustice? And they shared a picture. And on that picture was a timeline of an individual that's been in the U.S. since 2005 on an H1B visa. And in 2010, they were promoted to a managerial role where they've had hiring and firing responsibilities. And it also gave, over the course of several different years, individuals that they've hired that have gone on to not only get their green card, but become U.S. citizens, I believe. And so, yeah, again, it is injustice, and I think it's wrong. I do. I think that it goes back to being a good human. And regardless of the country of origin argument, regardless of the H1B abuse claims, we still have to talk about there is a path to residency that's outlined with the H1B visa. It is, after all, defined as dual intent by USCIS and our government. It just is. And so I think it is an injustice. I don't think it's right to hear somebody who's hired multiple individuals and seen them go on a path to residency while still stuck in a backlog and has been here in this country for 15 years, a contributing citizen, and has gone through a lot of anguish about that. So, at Revolution, again, thank you so much for your question. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, I think that that's what's so beautiful about this platform that I have here today. I can talk about these things, right? And bring up situations like these that are common. This is not an uncommon issue. I would imagine that there's probably a couple of you watching right now that are in the same situation. And I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to help tell your story and make more people aware of what's transpiring right now. So thank you very much. A couple of other topics that I wanted to discuss, and I read a lot of Bloomberg. I know a lot of you do as well. They definitely are in the moderate but conservative leaning category. But it's no doubt Bloomberg has, over the years, been a big advocate of temporary foreign labor workers. They just have. And so if you guys aren't following on Twitter, Sir Gargasian, that's G, Sir Gargasian, like Caucasian, but with a G, he shared some perm labor numbers, data. He's a data whiz, by the way. Thank you. I love your feed. Really appreciate all the work that you're doing. He shared some perm labor numbers that were the top 100 perm labor petitioners from 2018. And the reason why he shared this data is he was really looking at the Indian consulting firms, or what we refer to on this channel as the integrators. And what I found interesting, it wasn't necessarily those numbers. That wasn't what stood out to me. But Bloomberg shows up on this list, and they come in with 69 total petitions for 2018, with an average wage of $133,026. Wow. I'm guessing a lot of these roles are in New York, New Jersey, thus the inflated wage based on, the DOL's sort of determination. But credit to Sir Gargasian again on Twitter. Thank you for sharing this information. My response to him and my aha moment on it was, wow, look at all the U.S. consulting and staffing firms that are on this list. Very interesting to see those. I want to say there was at least 20, maybe 25 that were in the top 100. So if you combine those with the Indian integrators that are on the list as well, I mean, you're in almost the 30 to 40% category on these consulting firms that hold these temporary visas that are filing perm labor. So what does that say? It says that either, one, the demand is there for the skill, or two, there aren't enough American workers to fill those jobs. And I know there's a lot of you out there on both sides of that debate, but very interesting to see the Bloomberg opinion piece that heavily criticized the H1B visa rhetoric that there's a skill shortage from a company like Bloomberg that, again, 69 total petitions for perm labor in 2018. So they employ and they hire temporary foreign laborers. Again, that was an opinion piece, but it was pretty scathing. I'm curious if any of you out there that got through the whole article. I mean, it was literally, it seemed like 10 pages long, and kind of got a little redundant to me. But anyway, one other thing I wanted to cover, then I'm going to get into some questions, and we'll talk about some more news that's come out in the last day. But as I mentioned, I am at the foundation of what my skill is. I'm a technology recruiter. I managed a large immigration program. I'm an expert in work authorization and third-party consulting services. So just a little plug, if you or your employer think you could benefit from my services, please reach out to me directly, whether that's audit, process, compliance, education, lunch and learn. I'd love the opportunity to speak with you and see how you could benefit and how I can help with the H1B Guide platform. But I wanted to just kind of go on a very quick little third-party resume rant for all of my recruiters and account executives out there who may be watching this video. If you've made it this far with me, thank you. I really appreciate it. But if you've ever recruited or you've ever received a resume from a third-party subcontracting firm for a third-party candidate, and you've opened up the resume and it's 15 pages long, and you're like, where do I start? Okay. So don't do that. Third party consulting firms out there and employers don't have the summary page be 35 bullets and 2 pages long. It's really a headache for recruiters and account executives to go through all of that and to edit it for redundancy. Don't copy and paste your responsibilities under each job and each role. Okay, we don't want that. We want to know the client, the title, the location, the months and years, and what the consultant did, what technology they used. Okay. Help us make it easier to get your consultant's profile, excuse me, into the hands of the client, right? And the only way for us to do that is with a clean resume. Okay. If you're submitting resumes into a job portal, put the full candidate name on there, not an initial or a first name or last name. Help us with our data, right? We want to make sure the resumes line up. We need quality resumes. I can tell you the number of times I sent a resume to one of my sales reps and they sent back 3 question marks with, what is this? Okay. Literally, it's 9 pages long and I've already cut down 6 pages. Okay. I've tried to eliminate the redundancy, but the typos and the bolding and everything that goes into it just doesn't work. So I'm imploring with you guys to get those resumes better, to help your staffing partners get those resumes out into their clients' hands. I promise you, the less time your recruiting partners that you're working with have to spend on one of your consultant resumes, the faster that resume is going to go out the door. It's just proven scientific method. So anyway, any of my staffing firms out there that are watching, recruiters, account executives, if you agree, give me a thumbs up, like this video, and let me know, because I know there are a lot of you out there that feel that way. So wanted to cover a question. So early filing, when I get my EAD after adjustment of status, will my dependent qualify for H4 EAD? Pradeep, thank you so much for taking the time to ask me this question. Again, I am a work authorization and third-party process staffing expert and consultant. But what I will tell you is that early filing, if you have an approved I-140 based on a certified perm labor, as long as you have a copy of that I-140 approval, your H4 should then be able to file the I-765 along with a copy of your H1B approval notice and the I-140 approval. Okay, I'm sure your immigration attorney could do that for a small fee. But I will tell you that the form, the I-765, is pretty simple. You should be able to do it on your own, but if you're not comfortable, then I would advise you go ahead and pay the fee. But again, very important to get your dependent qualifying for the H4 EAD. Gives them full work authorization without any restrictions tied directly to your H1 as long as it is in status. So Pradeep, thank you so much for your question. I just really appreciate that. Okay, so let's see. Another thing that I wanted to cover very briefly, because this was breaking news yesterday, and we've been tracking it here on the H1B Guy and the H1BGuy.com and here on the H1B Guy YouTube channel, and that is today is 85 days until the presidential election. And as we also mentioned, the 35 U.S. Senate seats, now 36 Senate seats that will be up for grabs. Very interesting yesterday on the news of the Democratic nominee, Joe Biden, former Vice President Joe Biden, selecting Kamala Harris as his running mate. There was a lot of rumor out there that, he was looking at a few different candidates. But here, I think moderate pick in Kamala, definitely, I think if you look at the pick and how it makes political sense for the Biden campaign, and this is, again, just the best way that I can describe it for you. Over the last sort of 12 years, the political climate in the United States has been one that supported minority diversity candidates. The platform has just been there for it, okay? And we've seen it. And this isn't something that if you're watching, you're not aware of. But if we think about what, Mrs. Harris is, and woman, minority, but here's the big one, and here's the big one for this channel, and specifically what just has me so excited over the next 85 days to talk about more, and that is she was the co-sponsor on the Fairness for High-Skilled Immigrants Act with Senator Mike Lee from Utah. So, wow. I mean, we knew that immigration, temporary foreign workers, and there's this green card backlog around, S386 is going to be front and center in the upcoming presidential election. But I don't know about you, but for me, I'm really excited to see her go head-to-head with Vice President Pence on immigration. As you can imagine, his very firm anti-immigration platform and her very pro should lead for some very interesting fireworks that should give the H1B guy a lot to talk about in the months to come. So really looking forward to that as well. I know there was a lot of talk on Twitter and a lot of others, platforms out there covering it. Is it good or bad? I don't know. I don't know if she's enough to move the needle, but we'll see. We'll see. So before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask, I've got a couple more questions. Looks like they've come in. I'm going to share those. I've got a few more minutes here. If you're still watching and you've still made it this far, thank you so much. Sounds like this is the first live stream I've had that's gone off without audio issues. So, wow, very excited for that. Thank you, right? So let's see here. So Ramakrishnan asks, do I think country of birth is a skill? No, I don't. As I mentioned earlier, I am a fourth generation direct descendant of Portuguese immigrants and individuals that came kind of down through Quebec and French Canada. I have a very large sort of Eastern European ancestry as well, and so that's what makes this country so beautiful, is all of us have sort of this unique story. I believe we can go back to it, and I'm not trying to get into the history books or anything like that, but indigenous tribes here in the U.S., there's only a few that can claim that. And the rest of us have just been allowed to come in and occupy and live and breathe here. Listen, I love this country. I love that I have a platform like this to talk about this particular very small niche I love the fact that, my audience has grown exponentially in the last few weeks, and it's because I've had a platform, and that's really thanks to S386, the H1B Guy channel, the H1BGuy.com. It wasn't built on S386, but I've been given this platform and I've been given an opportunity to speak on both sides. I'm going to continue to do so. And I hope that you guys just really appreciate my take. I'm not neutral on it. I definitely am not. And I think that if you've watched it enough, you understand. But what I do know is that country of origin, country of birth, is not a skill. It just isn't. But what is a skill is your ability to contribute. High tech, education, medical. But one thing that we've seen a lot in the news has been how there's been a lot of percentages thrown out. I don't have the data in front of me. I don't know the data to be exact, but the H1B is heavily on the Indian national side. And it's true. And it's true because the integrators have dominated the HCAP lottery. I'm not saying there aren't other countries that have highly skilled laborers that could benefit the U.S. I definitely believe that. And so what I'd like to see, and there's been some mention of this, I don't know if we need to go down the path of H1B country of origin percentages. I don't necessarily know if that's the path we need to go down. But I do know that reform needs to happen. Reform needs to happen around the H1B. Reform needs to happen around employment-based preferences based on country of origin. And I think that I've been very adamant about that. And I think that a lot of you out there, agree with me. And I know that there's a lot of you who've contacted me that don't agree with me. And that's what's so beautiful about this platform. So, Ramakrishnan, thank you so much for your question. I really appreciate that. And I just wanted to thank everyone who's taken the time to follow me on Twitter. I do want to mention kind of my rule for Twitter engagement, and that is this. If you like one of my comments, if you retweet one of my comments, if you retweet or like a comment that I'm tagged in, I am going to follow you. I'm going to follow you because I'm interested in what you're talking about. I'm interested in your view. I'm interested in your opinion. And if you don't follow me back, that is okay. But I'd love for you to follow me back. I'd also love for you to, right now, if you haven't, is to like this video and subscribe to the H1B Guy here on YouTube and click the bell for notifications. I'm looking forward to crossing that 100 subscriber mark. I'm looking forward to the next 100, the next 100, and the next 100. I'm just going to keep talking on this platform, and I'm going to keep helping you guys understand more about what is a very complicated and very much mislabeled category, the H1B visa, the L1B visa, TN visas for that matter, and the green card backlog based on the country of origin. Ramakrishnan, no problem. I really appreciate you taking the time to send in a question. What I offer here is an opinion. It's a non-legal opinion. So just keep that in mind. And, with that being said, no video tomorrow. Look for a new post on Friday on the H1BGuy.com and here on the H1B Guy YouTube channel, where we're going to cover another episode of the H1B Guy News for week ending August 14th, 2020. And would love if you just check back and watch that video. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to check out my live stream today. If you've made it this far, I just want to say thank you so much. As you can tell, the support over the last the last 2 weeks just has me so excited. So excited to keep talking. So excited to keep talking about something that I just love and I'm so passionate about. With that being said, the H1B Guy, your global source for all things H1B.